I appreciate it. Let me begin by channeling my friend and predecessor, Kent Conrad, who sat here as chair of the Budget Committee for many years and was chair when I first came to the Senate. And he used to feature a graphic with a picture of a building in the Cayman Islands called Ugland House, in which 18,000 corporations purported to do business. It's only 5 stories high, only a couple of windows wide. Clearly, as Kent would say, the business that was being done in Ugland House was monkey business rather than real business. And I hope that we can agree that allowing international tax shelters like that, where companies actually aren't doing any real business, isn't just bad policy, but it ought to be nauseating to us to allow that kind of mischief to take place. Let me talk a little bit about the global minimum tax rate, Dr. Clausing. And we've heard some testimony in the Finance Committee and in this committee over the years that there's advantage, and we don't want to be anti-competitive for companies seeking lower tax rates. The factor that claim always seems to leave out is the differentiation between a multinational corporation and an American corporation, and the relative advantage of the multinational either of locating factories and jobs overseas or of playing games with Ugland houses and fake overseas shell companies to give themselves competitive advantage against another American company. And I can imagine, for instance, a big multinational that has a subsidiary, and the subsidiary is perhaps a chain of stores that compete with locally owned stores, tire stores, who knows what. And because the multinational pays super low tax rates, they can help their subsidiaries compete more successfully against the locally owned small business. Is that a real concern, and how much impact do you think fixing this problem will have in supporting both, I guess I would call them real American businesses, both large and small?
Yes, thank you for that question. I think it illustrates that there's multiple types of competitiveness that we should keep an eye on. One type of competitiveness is the competitiveness of U.S. companies when they face foreign competitors abroad, right? And those competitors abroad may have 0 tax rates, right? And our companies pay higher tax rates. So one great thing about the Pillar 2 agreement is it raises that tax rate abroad from 0 to 15. So that already helps with that type of competitiveness. But a second type of competitiveness, which I think is more pertinent to your question, is the competitiveness of the U.S. location. And if we think about our interests as a country, it's in having our location be a competitive place to do activities, right? So if our firms, when they operate here in the United States, in states like Rhode Island or Wisconsin, if they're paying 21% on their U.S. operations, but they're getting a 50% discount to be abroad, that tilts the playing field in favor of operations abroad instead of in the United States. And it also tilts the playing field between different types of actors in our competition, as you point out. Senator Whitehouse, the small firms that don't have the advantage of having these subsidiaries offshore have to pay the full statutory rate, whereas big firms can get their global rate down to half that rate by managing to earn most of their profit offshore, as we saw in the AbbVie example that you mentioned in your opening statement.
Which may or may not be really earned offshore.
Indeed.
And I'd ask you, for the record, if you wouldn't mind giving us a couple of sort of juicy examples of where enormous profits are declared overseas without apparently any collateral work being done there, and that it's purely an accounting scam, if you would. Mr. Arnsmeyer, you've been, active in trying to fight for small businesses against this kind of anti-competitive advantage for big multinationals against American small businesses. Would you care to add anything to what Dr. Clausing has said?
Well, Chairman Whitehouse, small businesses are looking for nothing more than a level playing field. And clearly, you have a situation where they cannot compete tax-wise with entities that are able to get a more favorable tax rate based on a portion of their business being offshore. It's as simple as that. And small businesses have no, only 1% of small businesses even export. So we're talking about businesses who are purely domestic, and they don't have, if there was any opportunity to take advantage of anything, they don't have the lawyers, the accountants to help them do it. So that's all small businesses want, is level playing field with their competitors.
Senator Johnston.